Hey, I'm John Morello, Twistlock CTO. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the new features that we have in Twistlock 2.0. So one of the first features that we have, and probably the most visible one, is a feature we call Runtime Radar. What we do with Runtime Radar is take all of the connectivity patterns that we learn about all of the applications you've deployed in your containers and display them on a network graph where you can see, sort of in a Google Maps style, how your application works, what parts of the application talk to what other parts, over what ports, using what protocols, and then we overlay that information with vulnerability and threat data so you can easily visualize the overall security posture of your applications. The really cool thing about Runtime Radar, though, is it's not just a view-only option. In other words, it's not just showing you the state of your application, but the model that we build, a graph of connectivity between the components of the pods and services and containers that you have in your environment, we also build that into a network policy that can then be enforced by underlying network plugins like Weave and Calico. So everything that you see that we learn dynamically, as well as everything that you add to that by manually annotating the graph to show additional connectivity patterns that you know about, everything that's created there is automatically available in this networking policy that can be consumed by these plugins and then actively enforced at layer 2. So basically think of what we're doing as informing your firewall of how to limit traffic based on the knowledge we have of the applications that you're running in your containers. The second big feature that we built in Twistlock 2.0 is something we call Compliance Explorer. So from the very beginning of Twistlock, we've always had the ability to both monitor and actively enforce compliance across the entire Docker CIS benchmark, but also any sort of user-uploaded compliance checks that you want to do through OpenSCAP as the protocol. What we do in 2.0 is we actually take all of the settings that you've specifically chosen for your environment and we show it in a way that's really consumable for auditors or security professionals that basically shows what's the current state of your environment based on a few gas gauges that show compliance for containers and images and hosts, and also show for every single check that you're doing, what is your current posture for compliance, are 90% of the objects compliant or 50%, and shows you compliance trends over time. So the idea is if you're an auditor, you can easily go in and view a single dashboard that shows you how compliant you are with whatever regulatory standards that are important to your particular organization. And of course, Compliance Explorer is a great way to visualize your compliance with standards like HIPAA and PCI, and also the new work that we've helped NIST work on with the NIST Special Publication 800-190. So all of the different compliance things that are important for your organization, you can easily visualize at that point in time and trends over time via the Compliance Explorer. The third major feature we have is actually a set of capabilities that customers that we have in the government and financial services industries have requested for us to help make the security of their containerized environments at the same level that they have for their traditional environments. In other words, they've standardized on things like strong two-factor authentication and the ability to do secrets detection and monitoring in their applications, and they want to extend those into their containerized environment. So the first area that we do is we are enabling in Twistlock 2.0 the ability for you to use certificates that you already issue from your own internal PKI that you may have stored on smart cards, or if you're in the government space, PIV cards or CAC cards, and to use those same strong authentication tokens to authenticate not just to the Twistlock console, but also to all the entities that we protect, to Docker instances, to Kubernetes. And the way that that works is building on the same authorization plugin framework that we open sourced and that's been shipping in Docker since Docker 1.10. We leverage that in our commercial product to enable these customers to utilize those certificates to authenticate all the commands that they use and everything that they do to manage their containerized environment. The second area of functionality we have is around secrets detection and enforcement. One of the challenges that people have with containers is how do I make sure that I'm not embedding SSH keys or X509 private keys or passwords and environment variables. And the way that we're doing this is not looking simply at what's in the environment vars, but actually crawling the entire image file system, looking for those secrets that might be embedded in your image, but more importantly is actively giving you the ability to block the deployment of images or containers that are not compliant with your policy. So we don't want to just show you the problems that might exist in your images, but actually to give you a policy-driven way where you can prevent those vulnerable images or images that contain those secrets from being used in your environment. And that's kind of consistent with the way that we do compliance overall, in that we're not just giving you visibility, but also active enforcement of those capabilities. So those two sets of features that we have for those high security customers, strong authentication and secrets detection and enforcement, is really the third major area of our release in Twistlock 2.0. So we ship Twistlock about every 2 months, and we've been really proud that we've stayed on that same really active release cadence now for 9 public releases. So you might wonder what's coming next in Twistlock 2.1. Without giving too much away, there's a couple of things that you can think of as really sort of high priority features for us. One of them is we know a lot of information about the vulnerabilities that exist in our customers' environments, all the images that they're in, the containers those images are running in, the hosts that they're on top of. But we also have a Twistlock research organization that we're using to really understand not just what exposure you have in terms of where those vulnerabilities are, but how actively those vulnerabilities are being exploited in the wild and how much they impact you as a customer. And one of the things we're going to do in 2.1 is to make it much easier for you to visualize what are the specific vulnerabilities that are most important to your environment so that you can stack rank and prioritize fixing those problems that impact your specific environment versus just sort of generically what are the vulnerabilities that are of highest severity. The second thing you can think about is, remember at runtime we have this really in-depth, comprehensive model that describes what containers talk to what services and pods and what ports they listen on and so forth. We also obviously know a lot about the application. So there's a lot of things that we can do to potentially protect the application at the network layer by tying those two data sources together. And so you hear about some really cool things that we're doing to basically say for every time that you deploy a container, we have a network-centric way to protect the application in that, but in a way that doesn't require you to change anything about the host, about the way that you build your image, or the way that you deploy those containers. And so those are two of the big feature areas that we're working on in Twistlock 2.1. Thanks for watching. For those of you that are customers, we really appreciate your business, and it's been an honor to be able to serve you. If you'd like to learn more about Twistlock, visit twistlock.com where you can get a free evaluation. You can download our free developer edition, and we'd be happy to work with you to see how Twistlock can help solve security problems in your environment.